All right, everyone, and then we'll get started here. So thank you for joining us for today's Brunch and Learn. Today we have Robin David with us from the Mentor Center. Thank you so much for joining us today, Robin. It's really great to have you with us, and she'll be sharing a little bit about kind of everything to do with the rundown of what the Mentor Center is in Grand Forks and kind of the ins and outs of how they have won a few awards and kind of what you can do to kind of bring something like this into your community. So go ahead, Robin. Thanks for being with us today.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I was really excited about the chance to love to share about the Mentor Center and what we're up to there. It's just been a really special place. And so getting a chance to share that with others is always a good morning. So thank you for that. And thanks to everybody who's checking in on this. So the Mentor Center in Grand Forks is, as I said, a pretty special place. We're going to talk a little bit today about what it is and what we've done there, what the impact has been, and then, yes, as you mentioned, we're going to talk about what are the key elements that are needed to start up a program like this. So I will start first of all with a little story about the Mentor Center. Last year, we have these little conversation boards that we set up around the building. So we have a bulletin board with markers, and we'll pose a new question every couple of weeks, and students can scribble their responses along there. And one of them that we had set up last year just posed the question, what does the Mentor Center mean to you? And left that open. And one morning, as I was in the center before we opened, before anyone else was there, I was walking down the hall, and I had been observing periodically what students were commenting here and there. But I walked down the hall this morning, and there had been a new comment added, and it was huge. This big one-word response that a student had added right there in the middle, very colorful, everything. That's what the Mentor Center means to me. It's everything. And I stopped and I had a little moment just to take that in, because that meant that the work that we had been doing, what this was all about, we had pulled it off. We had made a space that was a place where students could feel safe, where they could feel welcomed, where they could learn what they're capable of. And that was a pretty amazing moment to realize, yep, it's working. And so today we'll talk about, as I mentioned, what it is that we do there, how it works, what the impact has been, and then the essential elements to run something like this new institution that we've created. And you can see here one of our stickers. It's really great to have an associate coordinator who is also a professional artist. So we have these stickers, and as you can see, if it makes it onto a teenager's skateboard, it clearly, I think that's a significant kind of recognition that we have there. So we'll talk about those three elements as we go. First of all, the origin of the Mentor Center. Now, you all are within school districts. You know how really, really rough that COVID times were. And in Grand Forks, it was clear that learning loss and mental health were some of the key challenges that students were facing during that early time in the pandemic. And so that first fall, when schools were back in session and figuring out the best ways to do it, and GFPS knew about the learning loss and mental health and found an opportunity to get some funding to support those, they said, let's do this. Let's make some kind of place where we can do both, where we can have mental health supported and we can have learning loss, and students will just have a positive environment to be in. And we don't know what that's going to look like yet, but we'll figure it out as we go. And it was meant to be originally just a short program for those 4 months to get through the school year, to have a place that students could go if they needed any kind of support. What it turned into then is a long-standing institution that is able to address challenges that were here long before COVID, and that districts across the nation are dealing with, such as keeping students engaged and achievement gaps amongst various groups. And so difficult times sometimes bring about innovation that ends up doing good things. And so this has been one of those examples of, looking at these mask pictures. I think everybody who worked within a school in that time, that was a rough time to be thinking about that, but it's brought about something really good in the Grand Forks Public Schools district. So the logistics of how this all works and what it is that the Mentor Center is, I always start by saying this is what the Mentor Center is not, because sometimes people have an idea of what a program like this might be, and they think, oh yeah, it's an after-school program. That's great. We have after-school programs too. It's not that. Or I've had people that say, oh, it's a teen center. It's really great. We've needed a teen center in Grand Forks. It is not that either. Nor is it a specific tutoring program to help specifically support academics. It has a little bit of all of those things, and yet it could not accurately be described as any of those three. Instead, we do things a little bit differently at the Mentor Center. And one of those aspects is, I think the most significant one, is that it is part of the school system. And if you see a teen center, for instance, it's not connected to a school usually. Tutoring programs sometimes are, sometimes not, after school programs. By having it part of the school district itself, we are connected to everything that the school district is doing, to all of the resources of the school district. We can do referrals, we can go back and forth, we can partner with a case manager within the building, we can work with a student on their IEP at the Mentor Center. We have all of those resources. It's also a tool then for principals to be able to use to say, you know what, I've got a student and they're really struggling, and I think they need a place and they need supports. I'm going to talk to them about the Mentor Center. So to be able to have that connection within the school district is a critical difference. With that, then we can do case management. So every student who comes to the Mentor Center is assigned to a couple of case managers, an academic one and a mental health one, so that it's more than just general behavior management that we might be doing or helping a kid with their homework. We can be going back and forth with their teachers or back and forth with a special ed case manager to really dig in and figure out what is it going to take for the student to be successful here and at school. And then the other distinctive feature that we have at the Mentor Center is that we support academics and we support mental health. And in a school setting, sometimes academics are the key and then mental health is secondary. In another context, it might be the other. They are both equal for us. And that's really distinctive and has been critical to the success of the Mentor Center. Now, it can best be described as a drop-in support center. Students do not have to register to come here. It's open to anyone who is in middle school and high school. They can come by anytime during our hours and work with the support that they might need. And so we are open until 8 o'clock in the evening. So it's different than a whole lot of programs. You can see the sunny sky in this photo, but we're there until the dark, during those winter months. And so students can come right after school if they wish. They can stop by a little bit later after school activities are completed. Whenever works for them, we are here and we will support them with whatever they need. And we have really beautiful space on the edge of the University of North Dakota campus in a former clinic building, which works out remarkably well. It's really a wonderful environment for it. Now, the services that we offer at the Mentor Center, the 3 core services that have been the same thing that we have done from our very inception are academic and mental health, as I mentioned, and then enrichment programming. So enrichment programming is happening every day at the Mentor Center. Some of the favorites are cooking classes. Students really like that. We have a therapy dog who visits us every couple of weeks. We have many different types of art classes that go on. We do open gym in the colder months, and then we do a lot of activities out on the lawn or walk down to basketball courts in the summertime, nature walks, mindfulness. We've had a little bit of everything offered at the Mentor Center. So it's another opportunity for students to be able to grow and have some fun. In addition to that, we have free busing. We get students to the Mentor Center every day from their schools if they would like, as well as free food to have at the Mentor Center and other food that they can take home with them every day when they leave. So every student, again, no specific referral or registration required. If they're in the school district, they can pop on in anytime, and we have these things for them. Now we are staffed with about 15 staff members typically. 2 of us are full-time and the rest are part-time, so mainly academic and mental health related, and as well as the administrative staff and bus driver. We also have a lot of volunteers who work at the Mentor Center. We have a partnership with UND's occupational therapy program and UND's athletics program, as well as having general volunteers in the community. The number of students that we have here in the center, again, varies. We don't necessarily know how many to expect at any given time. We do have a sign up for each day so that we can make sure that we have the capacity to meet the needs. But typically we have about 28 students a day, and that amounts to 300 different students per year, 4,000 visits. And that number always impresses me because students are not required to go here. They have already spent all day at school and they are likely tired. They've had all sorts of experiences at school. They opt to hop on a bus and come over to the Mentor Center. And in some cases, spend the rest of their day there and get home at 8 o'clock when we close. But this is their choice. They have decided to go to another school facility after spending all day in school. And so that number is really, really meaningful. And regarding the students who come to the Mentor Center, again, it is open to every middle and high school student. And we do a lot of data tracking, a lot of assessment to see who is coming in the door, how are we helping them make progress. And we really have a beautiful mix of students and staff members at the center in every way. One of those is racial and ethnic categories. And so students who are typically represented at lower levels in a lower percentage of the population within Grand Forks Public Schools are typically represented at higher levels at the Mentor Center itself. And so this is our race and ethnic categories, reporting categories. And again, different than the Mentor Center, or excuse me, than the Grand Forks Public Schools as a whole. Now, another category that is not represented in any kind of data keeping that is within the system is students who identify as LGBTQ. And those two typically are at higher levels, although there's not that specific tracking, but students would explain that too, that's what they see, and they felt that it is a safe place for them. Another set of demographics that I think are really meaningful is how various student populations compare through the school district as a whole. And so we have a few different sets of numbers here and three categories. So the yellow bar is Grand Forks Public Schools students specifically. The red is the percentage of students who come to the Mentor Center itself. And then the blue represents the number of visits made to the Mentor Center. So while 16% of students in the Grand Forks Public Schools are on an IEP, 30% of students who are at the Mentor Center are on IEPs, and that represents 45% of the visits to the Mentor Center. Final category is English learners, and those students we are working to get. It's often a struggle because they're also working to support families as well. But we typically get around even or higher representation at the Mentor Center. And then students in transition, I think, is a very significant category as well. So this would describe any student who is currently in some state of transition in their living situation. So students who are in the foster care system currently, or students who are experiencing homelessness. And we don't have those figures. They don't gather the figures for the Grand Forks Public Schools, but nearly 5.6% of the Mentor Center population are students who are currently in transition. And on any given day, that represents about 10% of our student visits are people who are perhaps going back and forth between different placements or staying with different relatives because they are in an unstable situation. So the Mentor Center has been a real key support for foster care families and for students to be able to have that one place that even if they're moving in their residential situation, they have that stability of the Mentor Center along with the stability of their school. Now, the approach that we take, our philosophy at the Mentor Center to be able to, again, get these students in the door who are not required to be here, but have decided that this is where they would like to be. The key approach that we believe in, I tell my staff, my volunteers, no matter what our name badge says for our title, we all have the same 2-word job description, and that is to build relationships. Any student that walks in through the door is coming with a host of things that they might have been experiencing at school, things that they might be experiencing at home. Yes, we have goals to help them with their academics, to assist with their social emotional learning. None of that can happen if we don't have those relationships in place. Building those relationships is what allows every other impact that we have. You can't help a student to be able to be more successful in their academics if they don't know that they're cared about. You can't help them with positive behaviors, if they don't trust you as someone who really matters to them and know that they matter to you. So building relationships is absolutely at the core of everything that we do. That is the primary focus. And I love this piece because it is a collaborative piece that my staff did during their orientation last year. And so every staff member was given a separate canvas, and they had an outline, and they didn't know what it was going to mean, but they had to paint their section however they wanted to. And then in the end, it was all put together into this piece that hangs in our staff room. So every day when they walk in, this is what they see. And they can remember that each one of them is bringing a separate piece to create the Mentor Center, to create this beautiful piece of artwork, because it takes that full mix of people with different backgrounds, different ages, different races and ethnicities, different life experiences to connect with all of the students. You can't necessarily predict when someone walks in the door, you know what, this is the person who's going to be the best match for them. This is who that person really needs. And it's sometimes unlikely connections that just are really, really beautiful. One of our retired teachers who works at the Mentor Center, we had one young high school student who came in and was working on some math and needed some supports. And she's pretty cool, pretty hip, and into music and whatnot. And here's this retired teacher who was working with her, and she really clicked with him. And as she said at the end, when I asked her how did it go, did everything work? And he said, yeah, I really liked working with him. He vibes. So it takes that mix. It might be someone in an unexpected connection that might just quote vibe with a student. And so the impact of all of this, we at the Mentor Center do a lot of assessment. We we keep a lot of records. We have access again to the school district's information, so we can look up certain details and track students' progress. As a drop-in facility, it absolutely is a challenging situation because it's not like a classroom where you're given a list of your 25 students and these are the people who are supposed to be in those desks every day from now until the end of the year. At the Mentor Center, it often feels more like we're not even an aquarium, more like out in the sea, and you get some people swimming by and they're going to hang out for a while and then they're going to be gone and then they're going to come back again later. So we do a lot to really observe and assess how students are doing and what the impact of the Mentor Center is. And that includes assessing academics and mental health. And we do surveys, we do one-on-one interviews with students periodically to really get that sense of what's going on with them. And so the first thing that we assess is mental health impact, and the Grand Forks Public Schools is part of the Panorama system. So we subscribe to Panorama and we work with them. They do surveys multiple times a year within the schools of students. And then we do separate surveys through Panorama twice a year to ask students about what the impact of the Mentor Center is and to check in to see how they're doing with with things. And with this, we've been able to observe a significant impact in a few different areas. One of those is a decrease in challenging feelings. That's significant. Students who come to the Mentor Center, again, it's a mix of students coming for different reasons, but to be able to know that students are feeling more stable as a result of their experience at the Mentor Center is really key. So not only a decrease in negative feelings, but an increase in positive feelings, more resilience, which all of us, I think, would attest is a huge life skill, especially getting through the pandemic, but being better able to persevere through setbacks was a key indicator. And then these couple of areas too that are really important protective factors is that students feel like they have more supportive relationships or better supportive relationships, and they know that they have a trusted adult at the Mentor Center. That is key for anybody at any age, but especially for youth as a protective factor to get them through. And now that we've been open a few years, we opened again in January 2021, that first pandemic year. At this point, we've been able to see students go from middle school to high school, students who used to come for a while, and then they don't come for another year, and then they find themselves struggling a little bit with the class and decide, you know what, oh, that's right, I should go to the Mentor Center. Or our staff members, their mentors, their case managers will reach out to them and say, how's it going? We'd love to see you come by again. And then they come back. So we've been able to see students kind of move in and out because they know that we're going to be there for them. They know that they can come back there and visit us anytime. Now for academic impact, this is something too that we assess through GPAs as well as through surveys and other tracking of students. And the quotes here from students, it makes me want to try at school. And you know, that's it right there. If you can get that, if you can get that motivation, that desire, and again, to make them understand what they're capable of, everything else starts to fall into place after that. It helped me to get a structure and a routine going. Those are huge things. Some students who come to the Mentor Center are there because they need some academic assistance. They need a tutor or a teacher to sit down with them and explain a particular science concept so that they can get through the assignment. In other cases, they might know how to do the work, but they don't have that structure. They don't have a place to go in the same way that, you know, an adult might go to a coffee shop to go get some work done or go to a library. They can come to the Mentor Center and they know that they have a private study room. They can have someone supporting them, cheering them on. I don't know anybody who doesn't need a few more great cheerleaders and supporters in their life to help them get done the work that they need to do. So that's been really key for students. Overall, we generally see an increase from their first attendance at the Mentor Center to the last day that they've come to the Mentor Center. Almost 80% of students have said that it helped them pass classes that they might not have passed without the Mentor Center. And that's important for middle school students to be able to get that consistency and develop those skills as they go into high school. For high school students, we know being able to pass those classes is absolutely critical, and their likelihood of being able to graduate goes up significantly if they're actually getting through the courses and not having to repeat them. With that as well, the Mentor Center supports the credit recovery program that the Grand Forks Public Schools runs. So this is an option that gives high school students who came close to passing a class but didn't quite make it, a class that they need for graduation, they are able to do some additional work in the summer. We work with them on that. We have students coming in, helping them get started and providing support as needed. And last summer, there were 58 classes that credit was received through that program in June. We're working on that right now too. So we have a lot of students coming in and out and calling with a need for help about their credit recovery. So again, really helping to increase those graduation rates. The most important outcome, as I mentioned at the start, is really just what role the Mentor Center plays in students' lives and that's the impact that we see every day outside of the spreadsheets, outside of the charts, but to be able to just see that students want to be here and this place matters to them. Now, some of our partnerships have been really valuable. This is absolutely a team effort. And so without the whole of the community coming together and all of these groups stepping up, we wouldn't be able to be where we're at. We have the Grand Forks Public Library and the Community Violence Intervention Center coming out a couple times a month, some of them to be able to do programming with our students to lead some really great sessions that they get to participate in without having to go to the library directly. We have the Northlands Rescue Mission, who brings in food that students are able to take home. So every day when students leave, right there as they check out is a whole little pantry. They are asked to grab whatever it is that they want to take home for that night. And then a couple of our partnerships with the University of North Dakota. One of those, as I mentioned, is the occupational therapy program, where students are placed at the Mentor Center as part of their first semester coursework. So I go over to the University of North Dakota School of Medicine and Health Sciences and do some talks with the students, and then they spend some time here at the Mentor Center each week as part of their introduction to the field. So that's been a wonderful partnership. We have the whole Grand Forks community who has stepped up there with a picture of the river. And then the UND Fighting Hawks athletic program has been tremendous. We love our partnership with the UND athletics, and they love it. Typically, the spots to volunteer at the Mentor Center fill up a month or two in advance. It is a highly sought out opportunity for UND's athletes. They love getting to come to the Mentor Center. We usually have about 2 to 4 volunteers who come every day, and it's a rotation of different students, and they really love getting to make those connections with youth. Our students love getting to see, pretty cool student athletes, and it's just been a wonderful relationship. And so we've had 60 volunteers come to the Mentor Center this year through the UND Athletics, and they've put in 600 hours. They did a little video about it, so we'll have you watch just a little 2-minute video that they did, but they really love getting to connect with our students.
Robin, you might want to turn your sound up. I don't know if everyone else can hear it. There we go, I think.
Some of our students are people who have thought about college or music. All right. Okay, so the next thing we'll talk about is funding, which obviously is pretty important to districts and to school boards. Our budget for the last couple of years has been about $390,000 per year. And the first year, that first half year that we were open was from the governor's emergency education relief. And that was temporary, and many of you probably remember that program through the federal government to be able to have that money go through school. So that's how the Mentor Center originated. After that, we've been using ESSER funds, and we are looking at, once those run out, looking at possibilities of future grant support beyond that time. You can also see here Caden, the therapy dog who comes to visit us every couple of weeks at the Mentor Center. He was just there yesterday. We are all so happy when it's a Caden day, just as a really sweet dog. We have him in a separate area so that students who are not comfortable with the dog can be in a separate room and won't need to be in the area with the dog. But he's a really dear dog who has anxiety himself, and that's really enabled the students to warm up to him and really want to support him. It's beautiful to see those connections that have established, and how excited and happy he is to get to come in when he knows he's coming to the Mentor Center. It's a very good day for Caden as well. Now, the key elements. So the Mentor Center came about within Grand Forks Public Schools, arose from a specific need, and evolved as we went to be able to meet that need. It's something that can be replicated as well. So this was something that was brand new and was a fresh innovation, but it is definitely something that could be implemented in a different kind of form in other schools as well. So the key ingredients that are needed. This is one of our cooking class creations. They learned how to make BLT sandwiches. I was told by a middle schooler that bacon was bussin'. So that's apparently a pretty good thing. But the key ingredients then that people would need if they're looking at creating something like the Mentor Center, I think the biggest one is that same sort of approach and philosophy that we started with from our very first month, which was to be robust and nimble. Those are the two words that came to mind as we were working to open the center. Within 3 weeks from my start date to get this new place open and turn it from a clinic into a wonderful educational and supportive enrichment location. So we knew the needs were great. We needed to charge in that sort of robust, strong, vigorous way. That's been our approach all along. And at the same time, to remain nimble, because needs change, situations change. You can do the best of planning, and then when students walk in the door, you realize, oh, you know what? We need to go in this other direction instead. So being able to be robust and nimble at the same time, and to have the support of the school board and administration to be able to be flexible and change direction and evolve has been absolutely key to the success. The other area too is hospitality and welcoming. And because students don't need, any school facility should be welcoming. Students are not required to come here. So the only way they're going to come to the Mentor Center is if they feel valued here. If they feel good the second they walk through that door, they're going to keep coming back because they want to have that feeling again and again. And so that has included for us, even we've done hospitality training and looking at what is the Mentor Center experience, where our staff members have done walkthroughs trying to imagine their experience. If I were a student, what is this like when I first walk through the door? What is it like when I do this activity at the Mentor Center? What is it like when I need to get on the bus? Where are those challenge areas? Where do they feel concerned? Where might they have questions? How do we work to be able to make that an even smoother experience for them? In the same way, if you are staying at a nice hotel, for instance, and you're walking down the hall and you pass someone who is vacuuming the floors or who is doing some other kind of work, getting something set up, they will stop what they're doing and they will greet you. That makes you feel like you matter here. And that's exactly the kind of feeling that we want students to have at the Mentor Center. So we really do a lot with creating a space where they feel welcomed. And that also includes the physical environment. So having a facility that is bright and warm, having green space outside where we can spend part of our time outside when the weather is good has really been a huge benefit. We need to make it a place that they want to go to. Plenty of outreach has been critical too. And this is something that schools do to a degree, but this has to be a little bit extra to be able to get students in the door. And so, yes, we send out emails, we put up flyers, we have, announcements in schools, we have do some outreach to teachers themselves so that if they see a student who could benefit from the Mentor Center, they can also help to talk to those students. We've had staff members who speak Arabic go to local international markets and share materials that they've translated and have conversations with parents who might not know about the Mentor Center or might feel nervous about having their student participate in something that they were not familiar with. So being able to go and do that outreach is really, really important so that students can get in the door. We've done virtual tours to little 2-minute videos that can be played within, for instance, a homeroom so that all students get that exposure to what it's like. A lot of it tends to, once students come in the door, they start to bring their friends and then they bring more friends. And so word of mouth is key too, but being able to really put a lot of energy into that marketing and outreach. Being able to have trauma-trained staff. So all staff members in the state, of course, need to do some kind of trauma training. We increase that. So it's not just something that's done a couple times during the year, but it's part of our ongoing conversations. It's part of our huddles that we have every day. We have the philosophy that every person who walks in that door, whether it's a student or staff, we might not know what they have experienced previously, and we might not know what they are experiencing now. And so we need to observe that behavior. We need to be sensitive, and we need to figure out ways that they can be successful here, whatever their situation might have been. So really doing a lot with trauma training has been important. Community partnerships we talked about already. This is not a requirement, but my background, part of it was in the field of education. So I started out teaching high school for a few years. I was the associate director of the UND honors program. So much of my career was in higher education. And I was also the president of the Global Friends Coalition and founder of the local refugee integration nonprofit. And that nonprofit leadership background has been really huge. So I had this connection to education, but being familiar with how do you start up a new entity, how do you do that marketing and outreach, how do you do assessment, how do you tell the story, those kinds of things that are critical to nonprofit leadership were really helpful here. So not a requirement, but definitely helpful. And then assessment. So I gave you some of the impact about mental health and academics, being able to look not just at one criteria and say, this is our sole means of measuring success, but doing a range of means. And also to have a broad view and to interpret those numbers with nuance and with sensitivity. For instance, I'm currently looking at I'm in the midst of this assessment for this year right now. And one of the things that I've determined is that for students who are in transition, so students who are experiencing homelessness or in foster care, we didn't help students improve their GPAs this year. We kept them steady. And for that group, if they currently have had to move out of their homes because of a really difficult situation, if they have family members who are not able to care for them, if they've had a situation where they've needed to stay with grandpa or with an aunt for a while because they had to move out of their apartment because they couldn't make rent, their lives are really complicated. And if we can keep them steady during that time, that's an accomplishment. What would happen to us when we don't have that solid ground underneath our feet? You start to have that impact and your performance can suffer. It didn't for these students. They held steady, and that is success. And so being able to look at all of this data and figure out how to interpret it and to be able to have that long view Because again, sometimes we can see their GPA was this third quarter and it's this fourth quarter. Okay, great, we made an impact there. But a lot of it is long-term. When you have trusted relationships with adults, when you have that sort of protective factor, that's not something that we can see on a piece of paper, but it means that you're a freshman right now, but in 11th grade, when something happens and you're really struggling, you know you can come back to us. When you're having concerns with your overall well-being, and you know this is a place where I can make choices to go here and I'll feel better about myself. That sort of thing isn't something that can show up necessarily on one quick little snapshot of GPAs, for instance, but absolutely has that long-term impact. So as mentioned, we were able to get an award from the governor in our first year, and then the National School Board Association this year. Most important recognition, of course, is from the students themselves. Here's one of our windows that we have at the Mentor Center, a thankful window, and they can stick up a Post-it note whenever they have something that they're thankful for. So, you know, thankful for the weather, or their pets, or food, or, you know, siblings. This was one that was added recently. This place, I'm thankful for this place. And that's the recognition that matters to us, of course. So I have contact information here. If you want to reach out, I can take some questions now as well, but there's information here that you can use to reach out. I'll show you a couple of quick pictures of the facility itself so you can see that, a quick little tour. Here is our entryway when first students come in here. They're greeted by a bright scene. They get enthusiastic greetings, and that's what the start of their Mentor Center experience is like. It's a former clinic space, as I mentioned, and so all of those separate rooms, exam rooms, turn into 16 perfect little study rooms. So here's one of our sensory rooms where students can work. And then we also have access to a big auditorium where we can do some of our larger programming, as well as wonderful green space that we have outside. So that's a quick little tour of the Mentor Center. I am happy to take any kinds of questions here at this point. Thank you all for listening.
All right, questions for Robin? I have one. So when first having gone or worked with the Grand Forks School Board, what were kind of the focus points that you guys had, I guess, worked through, or what were the points that were needed to be covered when you guys were first working out the kinks of having or wanting to start the Mentor Center?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So the district administrators, Catherine Galach, the Associate Superintendent for Secondary Education, and her team had sought out the grant initially to be able to provide these supports. And so at the time, and then I was hired on at that point once they had received the funding. And the relationship with the school board has been very helpful because they know the data, they get the information presented to them about what exactly the needs are in the schools and where are the achievement gaps and what are we trying to, where are we trying to close these gaps and with what programs. And so they know the situation and they know the mental health data. And we were able to get that project then with a green light to be able to proceed. And then to report back, I do reports twice a year that are shared with the school board so that they have a chance to see, okay, where's the project at now? How are we doing? What is the data showing? And then I've been able to go and present to the school board too. So they get those reports a couple of times a year and have been really supportive. We've had a number of school board members who have come out to tour the facility, and we've been able to connect with them in some really good ways so that they can see firsthand what's going on at the Mentor Center.
Great. Well, very impactful program, and thank you for being on with us today. And congratulations on the most recent award with NSBA. That's fantastic. So,
all right.
Any other questions for Robin? Anyone? And we'll have your all of this contact information listed on our website with the recording posted today. So,
okay.
If anyone has any last minute kind of questions that they think of later on. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today, and big thank you again, Robin, for being with us today. And please feel free to contact her for further information. Like I said, we'll have this, all of this contact information and all of the recording information today on the events page under the Brunch and Learn webinar series tab. We will not have a brunch and learn in July, so enjoy the weather and have a great 4th of July. Our next brunch and learn is scheduled for August 16th with Chad Roberts from TFFR again. He'll be having some department updates that will be coming up within the next year. You can access more information about our Brunch and Learn webinar series on our website on the events page. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. Thank you again, Robin.
Thank you.